Okay, everybody. So the way that the optical character recognition treated the five lessons, the first page couldn't be put into the EPUB, so I have to read the first page on the site. And again, if you want to check this out for yourself, I will have a link once this is up on YouTube. There'll be a link, but if you're in the chat right now, you can just go check that out. Archive.org/details. Neville Goddard Lessons 1-5 is the link. So it's not going to, the text is not the best on this version of it, but once we get through this first page, it's going to look a lot better. You'll be able to see it a lot more clearly. Okay, lesson 1, which is titled Consciousness is the Only Reality. This is going to be a very practical course. Let me just move over chat box right quick so it's not blocking anything. This is going to be a very practical course. Therefore, I hope that everyone in this class has a very clear picture of what he desires. For I am convinced you can realize your desires by the technique you will receive here this week in these 5 lessons. That you may receive the full benefit of these instructions, let me state now that the Bible has no reference at all to any persons who ever existed or to any event that ever occurred upon earth. And this is foundational to Neville's teachings. That the Bible, all the characters of the Bible, are states of consciousness that you experience. The ancient storytellers were not writing history, but an allegorical picture lesson of certain basic principles. And by the way, Neville is not the only person who interprets the Bible this way. There's like 5 different primary categories of biblical interpretation, and psychological is one, but he also has like the other 2. There's like other 2 there's, of the 5. There's like 2 other ones that he touches on periodically. So other philosophers have approached the Bible this way. The ancient storytellers were not writing history, but an allegorical picture lesson of certain basic principles which they clothed in the garb of history, and they adapted these stories to the limited capacity of a most uncritical and credulous people. Throughout the centuries, we have mistakenly taken personifications for persons, allegory for history, the vehicle that conveyed the instruction for the instruction, and the gross first sense for the ultimate sense intended. In other words, taking things a little bit too literally when there's not meant literal. The difference between the form of the Bible and its substance is as great as the difference between a grain of corn and the life germ within that grain. As our assimilative organs discriminate between food that can be built into our system and food that must be discarded, so do our awakened intuitive faculties discover beneath allegory and parable the psychological life germ of the Bible. And feeding on this, we too cast off the form which conveyed the message. The argument against the historicity of the Bible is too lengthy. Consequently, it is not suitable for inclusion in this practical psychological interpretation of its stories. Therefore, I will waste no time in trying to convince you that the Bible is not a historical fact. Tonight, I will take 4 stories and show you what the ancient storytellers intended that you and I should see in these stories. The ancient teachers attached psychological truths to phallic and solar allegories. They did not know as much of the physical structure of man as do modern scientists. Neither did they know much about the heavens as do our modern astronomers. But the little they did know they used wisely, and they built phallic and solar frames to which they tied the great psychological truths they had discovered. In the Old Testament, you will find much of the phallic worship. Because it is not helpful, I am not going to emphasize it. I shall only show you how to interpret it. Before we come first to the psychological dramas that you and I may use in a practical sense, let me state the 2 outstanding names of the Bible. The one you and I translate as God or Jehovah, and the one we call his son, which we have as Jesus. The ancients spelled these names by using little symbols. The ancient tongue, called the Hebraic language, was not a tongue that you exploded with the breath. It was a mystical language never uttered by man. Those who understood it as mathematicians understand symbols of higher mathematics. It is not something people use to convey thought as I now use the English language. They said that God's name was spelled Yad He Vav He. I shall take these symbols and in our normal, down-to-earth language explain them in this manner. The first letter Yod in the name God is a hand or a seed, not just a hand, but the hand of the director. If there is one organ of man that discriminates and sets him apart from the entire world of creation, it is his hand. What we call a hand in the anthropoid ape is not a hand. It is only used for the purpose of conveying food to the mouth, or to swing from branch to branch. Man's hand fashions, it molds. Let me just switch over. We're right here. Man's hand fashions, it molds. You cannot really express yourself without the hand. Let me just scooch that. This is the builder's hand, the hand of the director. It directs and molds and builds within your world. The ancient storytellers called the first letter Yod the hand, or the absolute seed, out of which the whole of creation will come. To the second letter He, they gave the symbol of a window. A window is an eye. The window is to the house what the eye is to the body. The third letter Vowel they called a nail. A nail is used for the purpose of binding things together. The conjunction and in the Hebraic tongue is simply the third letter or vowel. If I want to say man and woman, I put vowel in the middle. It binds them together. The fourth and last letter He is another window or eye. In this modern, and that is modern by the way, so because this uses optical character recognition, and they say this in the beginning of the text, some of the things are not correctly captured by the machine, so maybe obviously we know he means modern. In this modern, down-to-earth language of ours, you can forget eyes and windows and hands and look at it in this manner. You are seated here now. This first letter Yod is your I amness, your awareness. You are aware of being aware. That is the first letter. Out of this awareness, all states of awareness come. The second letter He, called an I, is your imagination, your ability to perceive. You imagine or perceive something which seems to be other than self, as though you were lost in reverie and contemplated mental states in a detached manner, making the thinker and his thoughts separate entities. The third letter Vowel is your ability to feel that you are that which you desire to be. As you feel you are it, you become aware of being it. To walk as though you were what you want to be, is to take your desire out of the imaginary world and put the vow upon it. You have completed the drama of creation. I am aware of something. Then I become aware of actually being that of which I was aware. The fourth and last letter in the name of God is another He, another I, meaning the visible objective world, which constantly bears witness of that which I am conscious of being. You do nothing about the objective world. It always molds itself in harmony with that which you are conscious of being. And this is really the crux of what I was trying to convey in my beginning rant. So much of what I was saying in that rant goes hand in hand, hand in hand with this lesson, which is simply all of the actions you're going to take on the outside, all of the labor that you think you need to do is unnecessary. You claim it in consciousness, and it automatically expresses. That's the way things actually work. You're told this is the name by which all things are made, and without it, there is nothing made that is made. The name is simply what you have now as you are seated here. You are conscious of being, aren't you? Certainly you are. You are also conscious of something that is other than yourself, the room, the furniture, the people. You may become selective now. Maybe you do not want to be other than what you are, to own what you see, but you have the capacity to feel what it would be like were you now other than what you are. As you assume that you are that which you want to be, you have completed the name of God, or the Yad He Vav He. The final result, the objectification of your assumption, is not your concern. It will come into view automatically as you assume the consciousness of being it. Now let us turn to the Son's name, for he gives the Son dominion over the world. You are that son, the second. This is the second man. You are that son. You are the great Joshua or Jesus of the Bible. You know the name Joshua or Jehoshua we have anglicized as Jesus. Joshua is also the one who took over after Moses died. I guess it was, I don't know if it was his son or just the one that took that claim, but anyway, he's the one that actually claims, takes over Jericho for the Israelites, takes over for the Israelites when Moses dies. And I've talked about Moses a bunch more in this stream. Neville talks about Moses all the time. He's got at least one lecture, but a couple lectures just about Moses. We ain't going into Moses right now, but it's the same name. And the only point allegorically is that right before you claim something, that state that got you right up to the manifestation will usually die. And then, boom, the Joshua Jesus state when you actually receive the manifestation. Because it's just those few last things that need to adjust in your mind and in the exterior world have to click. And then you're into this new Joshua or Jesus state. And it applies the same in terms of your overall awareness of what you're doing here. Your overall day-to-day acknowledgement that you're imagining everything. That also has this clicking into place type of experience. Now let us turn to the son's name, for he gives, we just said that. The son's name is almost like the father's name. The first three letters of the father's name are the first three letters of the son's name, Yod, He, Vav. And then you add a shin and an ayin, making the son's name Yod, He, Vav, Shin, Ayin. You have heard what the first three are, Yod, He, Vav. Yod means that you are aware. He means that you are aware of something. And Vav means that you became aware of being, that of which you were aware. You became aware of being that of which you were aware. You have dominion because you have the ability to conceive and to become that which you conceive. That is the power of creation. Why is it? Let's go. Here we go. But why is a shin put in the name of the Son? Because of the infinite mercy of our Father. Mind you, the Father and the Son are one. But when the Father becomes conscious of being man, he puts within the condition called man that which he did not give unto himself. He puts a shin for this purpose. A shin is symbolized as a tooth. A tooth is a fire. A tooth is that which consumes, that which devours. I must have within me the power to consume that which I now dislike. I, in my ignorance, brought to birth certain things I now dislike and would like to leave behind me. Were there not within me the flames that would consume it, I would be condemned forever to live in a world of all of my mistakes. But there is a shin or flame within the name of the Son, which allows that Son to become detached from states he formerly expressed within the world. Man is incapable of seeing other than the contents of his own consciousness. If I now became detached in consciousness from this room, by turning my attention away from it, then I am no longer conscious of it. There is something in me that devours it within me. I can only live within my objective world if I keep it alive within my consciousness. It is the shin or a tooth in the Son's name that gives him absolute dominion. Why could it not have been in the Father's name? For this simple reason. Nothing can cease to be in the Father. Even the unlovely things cannot cease to be. If I once give it expression forever and ever, it remains locked within the dimensionally greater self, which is the Father. But I would not like to keep alive within my world all of my mistakes. So I, in my infinite mercy, gave to myself things that I, in my ignorance, brought to birth in my world. These are the two names which give you dominion. You have dominion if, as you walk the earth, you know that your consciousness is God, the one and only reality. You become aware of something you would like to express or possess. You have the ability to feel that you are and possess that which but a moment before was imaginary. The final result, the embodying of your assumption, is completely outside of the offices of a three-dimensional mind. It comes to birth in a way that no man knows. Let me just scroll. If these two names are clear in your mind's eye, you will see that they are your eternal names. As you sit here, you are this Yad He Vav He. You are the Yad He Vav Shin Ayin. The stories of the Bible concern themselves exclusively with the power of imagination. They are really dramatizations of the technique of prayer. For prayer is the secret of changing the future. The Bible reveals the key by which man enters a dimensionally larger world for the purpose of changing the conditions of the lesser world in which he lives. A prayer granted implies that something is done in consequence of the prayer, which otherwise would not have been done. Therefore, man is the spring of action, the directing mind, and the one who grants the prayer. The stories of the Bible contain a powerful challenge to the thinking capacity of man. The underlying truth that there are psychological dramas and not historical facts demands reiteration, inasmuch as it is the only justification for the stories. With a little imagination, we may easily trace the psychological sense in all of the stories of the Bible. And God said, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image, and in the image of God created he him. I don't know if he's going to address here, but fish are states, fowl or birds are thought. Cattle is probably manifestations. Though I don't know if he's otherwise defined that symbolism in a lecture before. So in other words, it's talking about how your mind is created in the image of God's mind. Here in the first chapter of the Bible, the ancient teachers laid the foundation that God and man are one, and that man has dominion over all the earth. If God and man are one, then God can never be so far off as even to be near, for nearness implies separation. The question arises, what is God? God is man's consciousness, his awareness, his I amness. The drama of life is a psychological one in which we bring circumstances to pass by our attitudes rather than by our acts. The cornerstone on which all things are based is man's concept of himself. He acts as he does and has the experiences that he does because his concept of himself is what it is, and for no other reason. Had he a different concept of himself, he would act differently and have different experiences. Man, by assuming the feeling of his wish fulfilled, alters his future in harmony with his assumption. For assumptions, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. So this is one of this is a very famous Neville refrain, though it's not his, and he acknowledges it's not his. It's by Sir Anthony Eden, and I probably titled it something ridiculous like "The True Source of Assumptions Hardened into Fact" or some crap like that. Some clickbaity title. I'm like, yeah, let me do this. People will actually watch it then. He discloses that it's Sir Anthony Eden and talks at a little bit of length upon the context in which that quote was originally used. The undisciplined mind finds it difficult to assume a state which is denied by the senses. So this right here is talking about why. So the state akin to sleep is often abbreviated into the acronym SATS. So if you fairly new to Neville, this is your first time doing 5 lessons, or you're doing it again and you forgot. Here Neville's going to talk about why you would want to use SATS. And he does in a couple of the books too. And shortly, it's because you're just waking up. And so your mind is not yet used to simply assuming things, simply declaring things, simply deciding things. You're still really hypnotized by the exterior world. You're hypnotized by all the states you've experienced so far. You've really limited yourself. And so you have to use that drowsy state in order to make these bigger movements. The undisciplined mind finds it difficult to assume a state which is denied by the senses. But the ancient teachers discovered that sleep, or a state akin to sleep, relaxation, aided man in making his assumption. Therefore, they dramatized the first creative act of man as one in which man was in a profound sleep. This not only sets the pattern for all future creative acts, but shows us that man has but one substance that is truly his to use in creating his world, and that is himself. And the Lord God, man, caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof, and the rib, which the Lord God had taken from man, made he a woman. Before God fashions this woman for man, he brings unto Adam the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, and has Adam name them. Whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. If you will take a concordance or a Bible dictionary and look up the word thigh, as used in this story, you will see that it has nothing to do with the thigh. Now, where did thigh come into this? Because there was a rib here. If you will, If you will take a concordance of the Bible dictionary and look up the word thigh as used in this story, you will see that it has nothing to do with the thigh. It is defined as the soft parts that are creative in a man, that hang upon the thigh of a man. The ancient storytellers used this phallic frame to reveal a great psychological truth. An angel is a messenger of God. You are God, as you have just discovered, for your consciousness is God, and you have an idea and a message. You are wrestling with an idea, for you do not know that you are already that which you contemplate, neither do you believe you could become it. You would like to, but you do not believe you could. Who wrestles with the angel? Jacob. And the word Jacob, by definition, means a supplanter. He's kind of wandering into like 5 different topics here. You would like to transform yourself and become that which reason and your senses deny. As you wrestle with your ideal, trying to feel that you are it, this is what happens. When you actually feel that you are it, something goes out of you. You may use the words, "Who has touched me? For I perceive virtue has gone out of me." You become for a moment, after a successful meditation, incapable of continuing in the act, as though it were a physical creative act. You are just as impotent after you have prayed successfully as you are after the physical creative act. When satisfaction is yours, you no longer hunger for it. So this is something that, geez, who knows how many hours of YouTube videos people have made about this, and then have turned it into this sort of letting go thing. And I've done a video on the Sabbath before, which is to say, where Neville says essentially, this period of rest after you've imagined something and really claimed it is automatic. And it's a period of mental rest. In other words, you no longer imagine for it, you no longer affirm for it. Whatever imaginal activity you would be doing to feel like you already have the thing will automatically stop. If the hunger persists, you did not explode the idea within you. You did not actually succeed in becoming conscious of being that which you wanted to be. There was still that thirst when you came out of the deep. If I can feel that I am that which but a few seconds ago I knew I was not, but desired to be, then I am no longer hungry to be it. I am no longer thirsty because I feel satisfied in that state. Then something shrinks within me, not physically but in my feeling, in my consciousness, for that is the creativeness of man. He so shrinks in desire, he loses the desire to continue in his meditation. He does not halt physically, he simply has no desire to continue the meditative act. It's talking about automatically, either while you're imagining or after you've been imagining for something for a couple days or weeks or months or whatever, just no longer feeling like you have to do it is actually one of the things you're aiming for. And I talk about this umpteen times now. If you think about something you already have, like a physical object, or something, your career status or a relationship you're in that you weren't in a year ago or 5 years ago or whatever that you really want to be in. How you think about it now versus how you were thinking about it when you only wanted it. That's the difference that you're aiming to adjust into. So, in other words, if there's something you want right now that you're convinced you don't have, you want to have the thoughts about it that are like the thoughts you currently have about things that you have. I hope that's plain enough. So, like where you live now, your car, if you own a car, um, if you're married or not. Like, let's say you're married, you're someone who wanted to be married and now you're married. Let's say you have the job you want. All of those thoughts you have around those things, you have a financial status you want. All of your thoughts around those things, you want to adapt those to something that you're convinced you don't currently have. You want to make that same feeling, that same body of thoughts, hover that around the thing that you think you don't have right now, that you only desire. When you pray, believe that you have received, and you shall receive. When the physical creative act is completed, the sinew which is upon the hollow of man's thigh shrinks, and man finds himself impotent or is halted. In like manner, when a man prays successfully, he believes that he is already that which he desired to be. Therefore, he cannot continue desiring to be that which he is already conscious of being. At the moment of satisfaction, physical and psychological, something goes out which in time bears witness to man's creative power. Our next story, and this is our own, I think is our last story for the night, because then that's where I picked up section part, I guess lesson 1B, the second part of this lesson. Our next story is in the 30th chapter of the book of Genesis. Here is a king whose name is Judah, the first three letters of whose name also begins Yod He Vav. Tamar is his daughter-in-law. This is a fucked up story. The word Tamar means a palm tree or the most beautiful, the most comely. She is gracious and beautiful to look on and is called a palm tree. A tall, stately palm tree blossoms even in the desert. Wherever it is, there is an oasis. When you see the palm tree in the desert, there will be found what you seek most in that parched land. There is nothing more desirable to a man moving across a desert than the sight of a palm tree. In our case, to be practical, our objective is the palm tree. That is the stately, beautiful one we seek. Whatever it is that you and I want, what we truly desire, is personified in the story as Tamar the Beautiful. We are told she dresses herself in the veils of a harlot and sits in the public place. Her father-in-law, King Judah, comes by, and he is so in love with her, with this one who is veiled, that he offers her a kid to be intimate with her. I think it means a donkey. Oh no, I think it is to have a child with her. She said, "What you give me is a pledge that you will give me a kid or a child." Looking around, he said, "What do you want me to give as a pledge?" Also, I'm hoping that because of the veil, he doesn't know this is his daughter-in-law. Otherwise, it's kind of fucked up. But like in terms of our, I mean, in terms of this psychological relationship, the son being the one that will actually claim the state, the son's wife, makes sense in this framework of desire. So the version of us that has our desire is the son. So therefore, this is the daughter-in-law, because you're in your current consciousness, you're King Judah, the one who doesn't have it yet, the one who doesn't have this thing yet. But your son, your future you, already has a desire. So I guess that's why it's set up that way. All right, but let me back up the story a little bit here. King Judah comes by, and he is so in love with this one who is veiled that he offers her a kid to be intimate with her. I think he means child. She said, "What will you give me as a pledge that you will give me a child?" Looking around, he said, "What do you want me to give as a pledge?" She answered, "Give me your ring, give me your bracelets, and give me your staff." Whereupon he took from his hand the ring and the bracelet and gave them to her along with his scepter. as he went in unto her and knew her, and she bore him a son. That is the story, and now for the interpretation. Man has one gift to give that is truly his to give, and that is himself. He has no other gift, as told you in the very first creative act of Adam begetting the woman out of himself. There was no other substance in the world but himself, with which he could fashion the object of his desire. In like manner, Judah had but one gift that was truly his to give, himself, as the ring, the bracelets, and the staff symbolized, for these were the symbols of his kingship. I also think it's about giving them up, and they also can symbolize your current circumstances, your current presentation of self, your current identity. By giving those away, by taking those off, that's when this imaginal act occurred. That's when this creative act akin to imagination occurred, once he took off all of that stuff. Man offers that which is not himself, like the current circumstances. But life demands that he give the one thing that symbolizes himself. Give me your ring, give me your bracelet, give me your scepter. These make the king. When he gives them, he gives of himself. You are the great King Judah. Before you can know your Tamar and make her bear your likeness in the world, you must go in unto her and give of self. Suppose I want security. I cannot get it by knowing people who have it. I cannot get it by pulling strings. I must become conscious of being secure. Let us say I want to be healthy. Pills will not do it. Diet or climate will not do it. I must become conscious of being healthy by assuming the feeling of being healthy. Perhaps I want to be lifted up in this world. Merely looking at kings and presidents and noble people and living in their reflection will not make me dignified. I must become conscious of being noble and dignified and walk as though I were that which I now want to be. When I walk in that light, I give of myself to the image that haunted my mind, and in time she bears me a child, which means I objectify a world in harmony with that which I am conscious of being. You are King Judah, and you are also Tamar. When you become conscious of being that which you want to be, you are Tamar. Then you crystallize your desire within the world round about you. No matter what stories you read in the Bible, no matter how many characters these ancient storytellers introduced into the drama, there is one thing you and I must always bear in mind. They all take place within the mind of the individual man. All the characters live in the mind of the individual man. As you read the story, make it fit the pattern of self. Know that your consciousness is the only reality. Then know what you want to be. Then assume the feeling of being that which you want to be and remain faithful to your assumption. Living and acting on your conviction. Always make it fit that pattern. This is a really good, succinct explanation of the law of assumption, how to do it. So when I started the section 2 last time, I started at Esau and Jacob, and to be honest, I've done Esau and Jacob so many times now, I have zero desire to read Esau and Jacob again. If you're not yet familiar with Esau and Jacob yet, go to part 2 of lesson 1. Here's yet one version of Neville telling it. And honestly, it's the better metaphorical explanation for how you imagine and then manifest things. But I'll just reread this little bit right here. Know that your consciousness is the only reality. Then know what you want to be. Then assume the feeling of being that which you want to be, and remain faithful to your assumption, living and acting on your conviction. Always make it fit that pattern. Oop, wrong one. Chat tension. Okay. And in line with that, when you are living and acting on this conviction, in other words, knowing for a fact that you are this thing, you can't possibly be thinking about it's taking too long, there's too much work I need to do, that there's more that needs to be done. If you had really already claimed the state, you wouldn't be focused on needing to do more to get it. Um, it's simply that you haven't really made the claim yet in a lot of cases. But you can just adjust those little thoughts you're having and notice, oh, I am in this state. This state was with me all along. I just allowed myself to focus too much, too often on it not being here instead of knowing and embodying and focusing on, I already have it. It's just a simple movement in mind. And the more you pay attention to those subtle thoughts, the more you can notice, oh, that's how I was doing it. And that's how I was doing it. It really is just a little easy tweak. And those will automatically happen sometimes, well, for the most part. They automatically happen if you've done a successful imaginal act. Just like Neville talked about, that shrinking, sort of the not needing to repeat any imaginal act after you've really claimed this new state of consciousness. Also, too, thoughts, doubtful thoughts, fearful thoughts, thoughts of somehow whatever you want being jeopardized or being ruined or whatever, they naturally go away once you're in this state of having the thing. They just naturally disappear. If you want to know more about that, I recently did an extended talk on how to deal with negative thoughts. It's actually a video I really enjoy and have revisited a couple times for myself, because most of the times when negative thoughts are coming up about a specific desire, all it means is that you haven't actually claimed that desire yet, that you're still in a state of not having it and working for it. But you just got to claim the desire, and those thoughts will automatically go away. If it's a larger world pattern of negative thoughts, you're in a state of having negative thoughts. So you need to imagine that you are no longer a person who has negative thoughts. All right, guys. So thankfully this was a shorter stream than I thought it would be. I thought I might be talking for another half an hour.